Over the first season of the Filmographers podcast, we've examined in detail all 34 of Steven Soderbergh's feature films.
We've looked at how they were made, how they fit into the Hollywood landscape at the time they were released, and discovered some remarkably consistent characteristics to Soderbergh's fascinating career.
Soderbergh's not done yet, and neither are we. After all, he's releasing Black Bag, a spy thriller, later this week, and he has another movie, The Christophers, already in production.
On today's episode, we're going to look at the second half of Soderbergh's still in progress career, starting with 2009's The Girlfriend Experience and going all the way through Presence. More specifically, we're going to list our 5 favorite Soderberghs and most likely bicker about each other's rankings. I'm Michael Moreci.
And I'm Keir Graff, a man who truly dislikes ranking movies, but I do it for you, dear listener. And also the algorithm, because rankings rank higher, and we want to bring more film fans into the world of Soderbergh, or as I call it, Soder world.
We have made so many Soder, what's the word? Not conjunctions. When you put
Soder
two
puns?
words?
Soder
puns.
Yeah, it's not really a pun.
Soder words.
Soder
Which is the meta version.
Can't stop soldering.
Can't stop soldering. We'll need a solder iron. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to start with my number 5. Now, again, these are the rankings we did an episode already of our top 5 from the first half. These are the second half from 2009 on, which sounds like for a normal human being, that'd probably only be 5 movies. For Steven Soderbergh, it's like 18. So I'm going to jump in with my number 5, which is Contagion. A movie I'm actually a little bit surprised. If you had asked me this a few months ago, if Contagion would make my list, I probably would have not had it on there. I would have actively said no. But to be frank, it's a movie I hadn't seen up until we started this experiment. And now I've watched it, I believe, 3 or 4 times. And it's not really why I really enjoy it is not really the prescience. Like, the prescience is remarkable and startling and scary that movie had. Because remember, this came out pre-COVID and they're using terms like social distancing in it, which is I just can't really wrap my head around it. But what's really remarkable about this movie, why I really love it, there's a few reasons. But best of all, I think is, and this is a testament to the script as well, which is Scott C. Burns, who collaborated with Soderbergh on a lot of movies during this period. It's how much information they're able to convey, complicated scientific information. They're able to convey in ways that are remarkably digestible, clear, concise. We talk about it a lot. Keir saw Mickey 17, and we talked about how that was not clear and not concise and not did all the things that Contagion does so well. But I marvel at the filmmaking behind what they're able to do, again, pre-COVID, because there's been post-COVID movies that don't explain COVID as clearly as Contagion does. It's great. It's a great, I want to hear your thoughts, obviously, Keir, but it's a great thriller. It's a great human story with, the Matt Damon's character. Forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the doctor who makes the breakthrough. That the female doctor who's amazing in it. It has Lawrence Fishburne's character is very rich. There's so much richness. It's so smart. It has so much depth, and it whizzes by. I think at like an hour 45 minutes. It's not a very long movie because we compared it to Traffic. And it's like an hour shorter than Traffic. It has the same structure of like this like multi-layered, multi-character things are going on in one place and another place, and they ultimately connect together. It has that same, that Altman-esque structure almost, where it's kind of sprawling in that way. But Contagion is also remarkably tight at that 145 mark, somewhere around there. I'm surprised it's on the list. I'm glad it's on the list. It's a really, really well-made movie.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say about Contagion, and I'm going to hold my thoughts on Contagion because it also appears on my list in a slightly higher ranking, which also surprised me. When we get there, I'll share a little bit more of my feelings about Contagion, but I'm well said. My number, yeah,
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, your number 5.
My number 5 is Magic Mike, a film that you hadn't seen Contagion before we started our Soder journey. I had not seen Magic Mike. And I think that in as much as I was aware of Magic Mike, I thought it looked like a fun, slight kind of trifle or something like that. And I liked it so much. I thought Channing Tatum had presence to burn. I liked the kind of easy breezy pacing of it. I thought it was a nice ensemble piece too. I mean, for having for kind of I don't know if it really launched Tatum because I kind of forget where we were in his career trajectory. He was pretty well known, but it kind of I think it pushed him to a new level because it was a hit.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
and so for despite having somebody who kind of was a rising star and became a bona fide star, I think that it really benefited from this kind of like odd group of people around him. I mean, obviously Matthew McConaughey was a genuine star, but he's a supporting lead, I think you could say, in that movie, and he's also there clearly for some comic relief. But
Definitely.
I just the writing on that was just so it felt so light on its feet. And even though I wasn't completely enamored of the acting chops of what's her name, who played opposite, I should have prepped for this. uh,
Oh, his love interest?
yeah,
Yeah, I forget her name.
Cody Horn. Just came to me.
Wow,
Like,
good for you.
uh, so even though I wasn't completely enamored of her acting chops, I think she was a good foil for Tatum, and I thought they had great chemistry. And yeah, it was just yet more proof that Soderbergh can do so many things. Soderbergh contains multitudes, right? I mean, he can do a Contagion, he can do a very serious, riveting thriller with a great big cast, many locations, and then he can do this kind of, you know, lighthearted, funny, but touching and very human story about a Florida stripper. I thought it was great. I almost considered ranking it higher, but as you'll see, there I do hate ranking movies, and we say this all the time, and it's still true. But this was actually one of the easier rankings of movies I've done, and maybe it was because I just decided to not overthink it. I was just like, go with your gut, go with the ones, in order of enjoyment. I mean, we could pick these apart on like which are his most accomplished films or which are his best films or something. But I really just went with, we call this our list of favorites, and so I really just kind of went in, they almost ordered themselves. It was really easy to draw the top five. There were some films that missed my top five that I'm very, very fond of, and that were also big surprises to me. But ultimately, it was the movies that I think about, the movies I would recommend, and the movies that where I think this is always a good sign of a movie you really love is like you think of quotes from the movie, uh, or you just picture scenes. So Magic Mike, number five for me,
I
and
wonder, are all 5 your movies, are the 5 Channing Tatum movies that that are like in your list?
we're gonna get there in a minute.
We'll
Yeah,
find
no.
out.
Well, it's funny because in a way, I almost could have ranked it a little higher, but and then I was again, I went very instinctively with this, and then looking at my list this morning before we recorded, I was wondering like, did I was I maybe a little harder on it because of Magic Mike, the next two Magic Mike movies? I I thought
I'll
the
be honest
second
with you,
was
Keir. I wonder, I did not make my list. I really love Magic Mike. I fear that I dislike Magic Mike's Last Dance so much that it prevented Magic Mike from being on my list.
yeah, no, that's totally valid. I mean, I think it contaminated my opinion of the first one as well. But I overcame it. I put it on my list because I just think it's a commercial success. It's a crowd pleaser. It just works on the levels you want it to work on. But Magic Mike's Last Dance did leave a really sour taste in my mouth.
Yes, I mine as well. But I do. If this were 6, and if this were a different day of the week, who knows? There's a very strong chance that Magic Mike could be on the
Yeah.
list, swapping probably with Contagion. But I gave Contagion a little bit of a bump just because, uh, from a craft standpoint, I just am so impressed. But not just with Soderbergh, but with Burns, the ability of what they did with that movie, and how much they were able to pack into it in a very economic amount of time, and it's just really well done. So just a little bit higher, but Magic Mike, I will admit, is close.
Yeah, interesting. I'm honestly a little surprised it didn't make your list because I came into this thinking of you as a big fan of Magic Mike, and of course, you are the Filmographers podcast, Magic Mike. So
But unlike that, I didn't have a last dance, not yet.
not yet, not yet.
Some of you may know this, but not only do I live in Chicago, this is where I was born and raised. And one of the best things about living in this city, by far, is being able to take advantage of its amazing arts culture, particularly its movies culture. And when you talk about movies in Chicago, you cannot have a conversation without including the Music Box Theater. It's been a landmark here for over 95 years, and it's been like a second home to me for most of my life. On April 7th, we're going to introduce one of Keir's and my favorite movies at one of our favorite movie houses. Join us as the Filmographers present Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight, one night only, at the Music Box Theater. We're honored, thrilled, and cannot wait for April 7th to get here. Tickets are on sale right now at musicboxtheater.com. That's theater with an R-E, not an E-R. Join us for an evening of Clooney, Lopez, Cheadle, and Soderbergh, all that projected on one of the best screens in the world.
Before we get into our number 4 movies, I want to take a brief moment to remind listeners about our Patreon. It's where you can find our episodes, video and audio, as well as extras that you will not find anywhere else, like the audio commentary track that we are going to be recording for Soderbergh's The Good German. Best of all, it is free to join. You can find us at patreon.com/the Filmographers Podcast.
If you want to join at a paid level, we'll thank you with great merch like a Filmographer's sticker or, my favorite, a Filmographer's coffee mug. And more merch options are coming soon. Again, that's patreon.com/the Filmographers Podcast.
And if Patreon's not your thing, you can always be part of the Filmographers community by leaving a rating or review on your podcasting platform of choice, or you can leave us a comment on our YouTube page. We like to know that you care and that we're not alone in this cold, harsh world.
We need that more than ever. So it looks like it's my turn. We're going to reverse the order here a little bit. And so I'm going to give you my number 4,
Let's go. Yeah.
which is Kimi. Another movie that I had not seen prior to watching it for our deep dive on the episode. We both raved about that movie on our episode on Kimi. So listeners, if you're not familiar with it and you want to learn more, go back into our archives and check out the episode on Kimi. We also ranked our top 5 Hitchcockian thrillers, thrillers inspired by Hitchcock. I just thought it was terrific. It was tight. It was, it's like kind of all these things we're praising in Soderbergh. We love his experiments, but I think when it comes to my really favorite ones, like in our first top 5, Aaron Brockovich was up there for both of us. Just a movie that is so successful. I think that if Kimi had been a theatrical release, it would have deserved to be a real success because it's so well made. The craftsmanship is impeccable. Great performance by Zoe Kravitz. It's tight. It's short. It doesn't waste anybody's time. It gets to the point. It gets done. Boom. But I also love the way that movie looks. I just keep thinking about it and just thinking how it looked so vibrant. The color, the richness. Sometimes Soderbergh's movies can be a little underlit or maybe a little grainy for me. Obviously it's his thing. And he's experimented with that throughout his career and it's evolved. And he doesn't, it's not like he's static and makes the same choices all the time. I mean, you've got, The Good German filmed in black and white with vintage lenses. And then you've got Kimi, which I just loved looking at it. The fact that they set it all in a single apartment, but it made an apartment that you wanted to just drink in with your eyes. You wanted to peer around the corners. I felt it was, I don't know, is it overdoing it to say it was visually sumptuous? I loved the way it looked. And I thought Kravitz's character's pop of color with her blue hair was like just a really nice kind of visual motif as well. I found it thoroughly enjoyable. I watched it, as I said, the first time for the show, and then I watched it again the second night, and I enjoyed it just as much, which I cannot say about too many films. So Kimi, very strong number 4 for me.
As you were just discussing that film, Keir, and thinking back to, again, our conversation a little bit about Mickey 17, about how bloated and unclear it was, I wonder if part of like your and my aesthetic, for lack of a better term, or our enjoyment for film, whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it, is kind of seeped into our love of like classic cinema as well. Because it's funny, you mentioned, you had saw Mickey 17 the other night. I had seen High Sierra, the Raoul Walsh, Ida Lupino, Humphrey Bogart movie, which, by the way, Lupino was top billing for that movie. It shows how big of a star she was, and Bogart was just coming up. But what I love about that movie, which is indicative of movies of that era and for many years beyond, is just the simplicity, like movies tended to be more about one thing, a thing. Just it's about this, High Sierra. It's about this guy who gets out of a bank and wants to live a decent life, and the decent world rejects him, and you know, it goes from there. It's a John Huston script. It's an excellent, clear, concise script, and I just wonder if that those values inform our values a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think definitely I was raised on classic film at at a rep theater in my hometown of Missoula, Montana, the Crystal Theater. It was just it wasn't a palace like the Music Box in Chicago. It was just kind of a drab box with flat seating on the floor. You had to crane your neck to look up, but it was it was like such a magical place for me. And my dad would take us to see films that were, from Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton to the Marx Brothers to, I got to see the original Seven Samurai there. And, just anyway, so I was raised on classic cinema. And I think I agree that, and that's a really interesting point. Like something we haven't talked about much on this podcast. Like it's probably important to let people know what your biases are or just your taste. In music, I like tightly crafted pop songs that last 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I like novels. I mean, I'll read a long novel, but I like a novel that can get to the point in 300 pages instead of 700 pages. Obviously, there's some, there's noteworthy exceptions. Moby Dick is one of my favorites of all time, but that guy had something to say.
Right.
With music, I prefer a tight pop song to a jam band. I'm not into the jam bands. I love artistic ambition, but I love clarity of vision. And I don't want people to waste my time. When Soderbergh, it's interesting because, Soderbergh has taken some big swings, but some of his biggest swings have been short movies, like Bubble, a film that we both love and made our top fives for the first half of his career. That is a big swing, but an intimate movie, and it's very compact and it's tight. He's not self-indulgent. And I think maybe this part is what this gets to is like, we both really are attracted to filmmakers who are respectful of the audience's time and attention and are not going to mess around. I think that, say, we keep talking about Mickey 17 because we just saw that and posted a review on that. Like, there is a good 95-minute movie in Mickey 17, but Bong Joon-ho couldn't find it. Instead, he gave us a 2-hour and 17-minute movie. I think that probably Soderbergh could probably re-edit Mickey 17 into a good movie. He probably could do it. Probably enough said on that subject. But I think that Kimi is just a perfect example of economical storytelling. And I think I said at the time in our original episode on that it was so startling because you expect the ending to go on longer. You expect the second and third boss fights as it's become common in kind of thrillers. And instead it ended in a very old fashioned way, which is like bad guys defeated, roll credits. And, there was a very short epilogue, but very short. And, I love that. That's certainly a motif of classic film that I think we both enjoy, which is like the story's over, cue, the end appears on the screen or Finn, and then the music swells and you're done. And it's like, know when your story's over.
100%. I agree with all of that. And I think it's very important just not to be wasteful of time and your audience's patience. Some people will indulge you, but I also think that if your movie costs let's just say $120 million to make, as Mickey 17 reportedly did, kind of the indulgences might have to be curbed. Maybe make Mickey 6, like maybe.
The novel was Mickey 7. Maybe that was enough Mickeys.
Maybe it was. So that, I mean, that's,
Being
I like
respectful
that.
of our listeners' time, let's give them your
Let's
number
jump in.
four.
Number four, and I'll be lightning fast with this because I think we're going to talk about it more later. My number four is The Informant, which is basically goes to one of Soderbergh's favorite places, which is the underdog, outsider, and also con artist. It's like, what if Danny Ocean blended a little bit with like Aaron Brockovich, but was a Midwestern schlubby lying loser? And you have Mark Whitaker, who is one of the most fascinating narrators, maybe in cinematic history, who is totally brilliant, totally unreliable, a total con, lying, just schlub of a guy who is deluding you as much as he's deluding himself. And it is such a fun, fascinating movie, a fascinating character. You know, we said this with Aaron Brockovich that in a different pair of hands, Aaron Brockovich wouldn't work, at all. Like no one could have made Aaron Brockovich the way Soderbergh made Aaron Brockovich. And I think when we had Blake Howard on from One Heat Minute, saying that that was like Soderbergh's, All the President's Men, and he's totally right. And it captures that same thing that like Pakula did that nobody else could. Nobody else could have made The Informant. Nobody else could have captured. And again, like Contagion, it's a Scott Z. Burns script. It's like you said with Magic Mike. It's laid on its feet. It's a riot. It's fun. It's just takes this very serious stuff of like this this corporate malfeasance, lying, insider trading, like all these like really complex law breaking stuff that was going on, illegal stuff that was going on, and makes it somehow wildly funny and outrageous, and wild, because ultimately that's what the story is, told through Mark Whitaker's POV, which is so unique. Yeah, it's a movie I like. Contagion, that well, the first time I saw it, I saw this prior to the podcast, but I remember watching it on the plane. It was just a movie like most people, because the Informant unfortunately wasn't very successful. Like most people, I had skipped and I watched it on a plane and was just blown away by how absolutely incredible this movie is. I hope more people see it. I've revisited many times since then, and every time I just enjoy it more and more.
Again, another thing that we kind of beat into the ground here, but it's tonal consistency. One of the reasons it's successful is that the tone is consistent throughout. Soderbergh has a vision, he manages to hew to it, and that's why the humor works. Yes, I love that movie, and I'm going to hold my remarks on that because that is also on my list in a slightly higher ranking than yours. But I love it. Once again, listeners, viewers, we have not shared our lists with each other prior to this, and once again, we have a significant amount of overlap. Maybe we're spending too much time together.
Until your number one movie is Side Effects and I walk away.
Just wait, just wait. Now, what is your number three?
Oh yeah, I go back to back. So my number
Yeah, we're doing
three
this
is
snake thing here.
so my number three is No Sudden Move. I It came out at a time in Soderbergh's career. He was coming off a succession of Netflix films. So a little bit for context, it was his High Flying Bird, it was his Laundromat, then Let Them All Talk, which we enjoyed to varying degrees. Maybe not the Laundromat so much, but No Sudden Move, it felt like a return to form. I love Soderbergh doing crime movies. He does them so well, from Out of Sight, Ocean's 11, etc., to this. He has so much style and so much creativity, and he makes No Sudden Move, and he made it during the pandemic. He makes this stylish period piece, this Motown Detroit slice of Americana in the the 50s rather. It's either 50s or the 60s, early 60s, I forget. It's
Early
such a
60s.
Is it early 60s?
I
Okay.
think so.
But it's such a well done movie, cover to cover. It's smart. Where it takes you, there is, one of the famous Matt Damon cameos at the end. And where it takes you is so incisive about a little bit about capitalism, about crime, about community, about how cities are made, who wins, who loses. There's this very, very rich subtext beneath this, ultimately just a solid crime caper. I love a good caper movie. No Sudden Move is a tremendous caper movie. Great cast, David Harbour, Kieran Culkin, Don Cheadle, so many great performances in this movie. I just I go back to that movie, I watch it, and I just gives me a great feeling of like vintage Soderbergh doing. He does a lot of things well. This is some of the stuff that he does best, and it's just a movie that I really, really adore.
Great pick. That one did not make my list. It was close. It was on the bubble. It wasn't bubble, but it was on the bubble. I Yeah, it's a movie I enjoy a lot, and there's so many things to recommend it, and we explored that a lot in our episode on it. Um, for some reason, I don't know what. Like it was close, and it's a movie I admire and I like. I mean, it's not like I have nothing negative to say about it. It's just that like when I was kind of like quickly going with my gut instincts for my top five, it was the movie that I was slightly less excited to rewatch than some of these others. And so, it's probably hovering around number six for me, but
Mhm.
I agree with everything you say. It's a really wonderful movie. And the look and feel of that movie are so cool. I mean, obviously there's what he's doing with that crazy lens distortion, but it's more just about this kind of in between period. We've seen a million films set in the 50s with the cars with the big fins and the kind of classic, chrome diners, jukeboxes, blah blah blah. And then there's a lot of stuff kind of mid later 60s, Mad Men era, blah blah blah. But like this is interesting. It's early 60s, but it's gritty Detroit. It feels kind of impoverished background. I don't know, like it doesn't lean into tropes that you've seen visually before. It feels like a very authentically researched and recreated Detroit of that era. I know that the writer said that he did a lot of research. Yeah, it's that's a very good movie.
It's indicative of what Soderbergh does so well because he just manages to capture that time and that place remarkably, and there's nothing ostentatious about it. Where I think that other filmmakers fall into that trap where they'll show the car with the big fin driving by to be like, hey, the 60s, am I right?
Yeah.
And it's just like making a show of it where Soderbergh just lets the details blend into the fabric of the world, the place, the time, and it's just there and it's noticeable and present, but it's not making a point of it. And I think doing that, and we talked about this, is more about capturing the place more than trying to recreate the place and show the place. And he's so much better at capturing it, and capturing it makes the experience richer and feels more lived in when you have that confidence to say like, I'm just going to put the things here, I'm going to put the look and the feel around, you'll see it, it'll be part of what's going on. And I think it makes the whole makes for a better whole than having that big thing, the big Buick driving by and the close up of the jukebox and the 45, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
We got it.
Yeah, and then the car hop rolls up on her roller skates and tucks her pencil behind her ear and says, "Can I take your order?" I
Yeah.
think I can't remember if it was that episode. I think it was, and I think I'm going to butcher this quote, but I think somebody spoke about the difference between making a movie about that time and making a movie from that time. And
Mhm.
I think it might have been that one, but regardless, that is, I think, the sensibility from which Soderbergh captures it. And I feel a little envious that I didn't manage to pick that for my list somehow. But anyway, I didn't, and I'll have to live with the consequences of my choices. My turn for number three, right? Yes. So mine is Logan Lucky, uh, or Ocean's 7-Eleven, as we say. That was a movie that I warmed to with repeated viewings. The first time I saw it, for some reason, I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was good. Um, it's always tricky when people make films about this kind of like lower social classes. Big air quotes around lower. Um, but like, you know, rural people, rednecks, hicks, whatever. And I think that in another director's hands, it would have been the humor would have been cheap and condescending. As we've talked about, even though these are very broad portrayals and in some cases caricatures, I think it works because there's genuine affection for the characters. And I think that's the redeeming quality. I think in some ways I might have just been feeling a little envious because, back when I was dreaming of being a filmmaker myself, my cousin and I, that was very much our subject. We made a shot on high eight video, a movie called Bone Simple that was playing with the Blood Simple title of the Coen brothers, but it was a horror movie about a lovable dumb redneck. That's Raising Arizona, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a trope and it's a world that I really love. Whatever it was, on repeated viewings, the more and more I watched Logan Lucky, the more I warmed to it and the more I liked it and the more I just felt like it is a really successful ensemble of oddballs where the humor is kind of more subtle than you would think in some ways. Like, yeah, there's a lot of broad scenery chewing stuff, but there's also some more subtle moments. And then there's also, some genuine heart there. I mean, the talent show moment at the end where the daughter sings Country Roads is meant to be a Hollywood tearjerker moment, and it works. But everybody else does it. Why can't Soderbergh do it too?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. At any rate, it's a crowd pleaser. It's fun. It's funny. It's also a little bit of self-mockery in a way. I mean, Soderbergh loves a heist movie, as we know. He's great in the crime and caper genre, but I also feel like he's kind of like poking himself a little bit by like recasting Ocean's 11 with, redneck guys who work on their cars. Anyway, I like it. Number 3 for me. I suspect we're going to find it on your list somewhere, a little higher, maybe.
A little bumped. That's only
a little
3.
higher. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fun. It's got some of his best quotes. Like you can't. I hope we can't agree that in the pantheon of great Soderbergh characters, Joe Bang is up there.
Joe Bang is great, and it's funny because it's like Daniel Craig. It's like I think what he really loves to do is play ridiculous guys with ridiculous accents. That's what he really wants to do with his career. He was James Bond, but I think he would much rather be the detective in Knives Out or Joe Bang.
I think so too, and that's what I kind of love about him. Like he really wants to just do goofy stuff. He reminds me of oh gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. He's the guy from The Guest. He was cousin Matthew on Downton Abbey, and I'm forgetting his name. He's from The Guest. He's from many different things. He is a very classically handsome British man. He's tall. He's a great actor.
Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens, yes. All he wants to do is be an absolute weirdo. Like he just, the weirder the role, the better for him. And I'm just so appreciative and I admire that a lot. But Daniel Craig, same thing. And Joe Bang, one of my favorite lines ever of any Soderbergh movie is the I am incarcerated. It's so so good. I just love it. But we'll talk more about Logan Lucky soon enough.
It sounds like it.
I should probably lay low a bit before doing a job.
This has to happen in 5 weeks.
I am incarcerated.
Yeah, we got a plan to get you out.
Now, really quick, before we get into our top 2 favorites, I want to mention that we have 3 upcoming live events.
Yes, that's right. We're going to be presenting Aaron Brockovich, a movie that made the top 5 in both of our lists of favorites from the front half of Soderbergh's career, at the Lake Street Theater in Oak Park, Illinois on March 19th.
We'll also be introducing Out of Sight at the historic Music Box Theater in Chicago, my second home as a teenager, and that will be on April 7th.
And then we'll be headed back to the Lake Street Theater in Oak Park on April 23rd to screen Traffic. That's 3 opportunities to see great Soderbergh movies on the big screen. If you're in the Chicagoland area, you're not going to miss these events. Tickets are on sale now at each theater. Now, Mike, let's bring it home. What is your number 2?
I don't know how I'm first again. Who wrote this script?
Yeah, I have no idea.
A hack.
Favoritism. Blatant favoritism.
Yeah, I guess so. It's all coming out. My number two is gonna be quick because we already talked about it a little bit. It's Kimmy. I love it. It's breezy. It's fun. I'm a sucker for a good Hitchcockian movie, and as we went through in that episode, or we have 5 favorites that we list. It could have been 10 favorites, to be honest. But Kimmy is just. It looks great. There's something that you say that people say, and myself included, that like, oh man, that movie just plays great, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of this ineffable thing that like it's hard to describe what exactly you mean. And it's funny, I was talking to my oldest son who's getting into filmmaking about this, who was like talking about this idea of something playing great, and he was like, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't really know. Like it's just like it's sort of almost the magic of cinema in a way. That's like, why do we love certain things? Why do we respond so well to certain things so viscerally and so warmly, and they stick in our memory and stick in our mind, and we walk away with that feeling that only cinemas to me can provide when movies are just like at their best. And there's just something about Kimmy. I, I guess you can nitpick some stuff about it, whatever, but like there's something about Kimmy that like it plays so well. And I don't even know, after seeing it so many times, exactly how. I can mention some things. I can mention that it's, like you said, Keir, it's short, it's breezy, there's great performances, there's a familiarity, there's the Rear Window of familiarity to it as well, that like there's something kind of warm and comforting about that. There's Zoe Kravitz, who's wonderful in it. There's the way it looks, the texture, the Seattle loft, there's just so many things in it that really add up to it. And I can rate those things and rank them and be like, yeah, it's this, the top thing that really makes it work. And then there's all of these things I don't really know that would change all the time. But whatever wrestles to the top doesn't really matter as pieces of the whole. It's the whole that matters. And the whole of Kimmy, every time I watch it, I know what's gonna happen. I know the movie front to back at this point. And every time I watch it, the power and magic and enjoyment of Kimmy never diminishes. I enjoy it so much. I love that it exists. I wish I could have seen it, this on a big screen. It came out at a time where the movie theaters weren't really back. I think it was a very streaming specific thing on HBO Max. It got a DVD release, didn't even get a Blu-ray release, for goodness sakes. So unfortunately, I feel like this is a movie that, because of the time and place of its making and its release, slipped through the cracks just like a little bit. Deserved much better. I wish I would have had that big screen experience. Maybe one day. Maybe we do it one day here. We make it happen. You never know.
Let's do it.
Um,
Yeah.
we sh-
Soderfest.
that's actually not a bad idea, is for us to get in touch with the theater and say, hey, we want to play some Soderbergh movies on the big screen that never got their due. No Sudden Move, Kimmy, there's a few.
I like it. I like it.
Maybe,
You're
maybe not The Laundromat.
that could be the midnight show.
That's The Midnight Show. Yes, exactly. But yes, my number two is Kimmy.
Excellent. Well, a film we both agree belongs in the top 5. My number 2 is a movie you already mentioned, Contagion. And I was surprised to find it that high. Again, I trusted my gut on my rankings, but Contagion, in some ways, it's not a movie that I have as much of a personal connection to. Um, but I just feel like it's a film that works on every level, and I'm so impressed by, and it's so propulsive and immersive. Like, you start watching Contagion, you're going to keep watching Contagion. It is there all the things you mentioned. Yes, it is prescient, and it has this weird resonance now that it didn't have when it came out, and that is really impressive. But I think that, again, it speaks to Soderbergh's ability, for a guy who likes weird experiments and also likes very small films sometimes, and to work off the cuff, whether it's Bubble or Presence or something, with a smaller cast and a more contained story. He is also amazingly good at large scale stories, large ensembles, and significant budgets, right? I mean, Ocean's 11 and Contagion are two of the best examples of that. And Contagion, I think, is, isn't it one of his most successful films financially? I believe it is. And it's so impressive that it's so seamless. He's got such a huge cast, so many locations, so much, as you said, information to convey. It's a master class in conveying complicated technical information in a way that you're not constantly thinking to yourself, please stop giving me information, right? So many movies are bad with exposition. So many movies just put it in the mouths of characters, like who sharing it in ways that is obvious, characters telling other characters who would already know, characters going on too long and boring us. Contagion doesn't do any of those things. And the ending is an amazing payoff, amazing ending, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you end a movie like that? Well, Soderbergh figured it out. He tells us the origin of the contagion in a way that we are all craving that kind of concreteness and clarity in real life about the COVID-19 pandemic. And certainly other pandemics are coming, other pandemics are on the rise. But that one, cinematically and in a storytelling sense, it just ends so perfectly with a visual bookend that, chef's kiss. I think he ends that movie perfectly. So yes, in some ways it's not a movie that I'm as personally fond of, but I'm just so impressed by it. And yeah, and kind of, and I'll watch it again. And I know a lot of people have watched it multiple times. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I think it's kind of interesting for both of us that like we can be attracted to the movies that are like we just have a fondness for on that visceral, like I was describing with Kimi, that visceral gut movie magic level. And I don't think either one of us really had that necessarily with Contagion, but you can also appreciate and love movies on that like look, it's still an enjoying movie. It's a good thriller. There's so many good elements to it, but they also can enjoy the movie on the level of craft and achievement of like, wow, that's pretty remarkable what you pulled off there. And Contagion is one of those movies that like, if I didn't, if I guess if we didn't count that, I don't know if like pure enjoyment I would put that in my top 5, but that craft, the achievement, like I said, is what elevates it pretty highly in my book, in my esteem.
And I don't want to make it sound like I was going against my criteria of just like favorite and connections and stuff, because of all of those things, I was super engaged and super immersed. And so it's kind of like there's the personal connection, but there's also just the viewing experience. And to me, it absolutely delivers on the viewing experience. No question.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. All right. It's that time, Keir. Number 1.
It's that time. Drum roll, please. I think I know where we're going. I think I know where you're going.
I wonder where you're going. I am very curious, unless I'm mentally missing something. But my number 1, which should be a surprise to nobody who watches this show and nobody who's been listening to this episode, specifically, my number 1 is Logan Lucky. Easy pick for me. It's a movie that I just can't get enough of. I enjoy it a lot more than Ocean's 11. I just find it more engaging, enjoyable, light, fun. You could look at it in the context, like even Soderbergh says, hell, like they say in the movie Ocean 7-Eleven, which is pretty hilarious that he would even have that kind of in joke. But I think just on its own, we talked about this with Bubble, and I'm not going to go on too long because you already have explained this pretty clearly. But like we in our Bubble episode, we talked about how Soderbergh is able to like fix his camera on a subject or subjects or a place or an idea, whatever it is, and he can let the subject be. He doesn't influence it. And I think that's, again, I hate going back to this, but I think that's such a big thing with like a Mickey 17, where you can feel like a movie like that, like Don't Look Up, especially, you can feel the director, the filmmaker, like just pushing their own viewpoints, like just like giving birth, like shoving these ideas into this movie, whether they're natural or fit or not. They're just cramming them in there. And Soderbergh never, never does that. Like he puts the camera on what it is, he has the script, and he lets, like in Bubble, he just let the people be, and he captures them without judgment, most importantly, without influence, and it's such a better movie because of it. And granted, Logan Lucky is at its heart a goofy comedy about this group of people who are going to rob a NASCAR race. Okay, so this isn't We're not talking about Dr. Zhivago here, okay? But like at the same time, like Aaron Brockovich, where he manages the same thing in different hands, it's a very different movie because I think a different filmmaker would be like, look at these dumb yokels. Boy, are they're trying to do something that's too smart for them, which actually isn't, as we learn in Logan Lucky, but they would just poke fun at them, not with them. Like
Mhm.
Soder puts his camera with his characters, with his world. And that's a big distinction that is so important. And even in a movie like Logan Lucky, he lets these people be goofy, but he also has a respect for them and lets them have dignity and intelligence. And that's something that I don't know everybody else would do. And other than that, it's just a blast. It's just a fun movie. Like it's a fun, well-crafted movie that I have personally literally stolen from in how they hold up. And I would gladly do it again. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's might be my favorite Soderbergh period. I don't know, but it's definitely at the top. It's a movie I love. Can't get enough of Logan Lucky.
Stealing it from a heist movie is completely appropriate.
Hey, there, yeah. See, there you go.
Now, my number one may surprise you when you learn that it is the girlfriend experience. Just kidding.
It's like
Sorry. I'm
what?
just kidding. I'm sorry. I was trying to think like, what's the least likely one that I would pick that I can get Mike with? I was like, and everything is going fine.
Who
I
got
knew you
to
wouldn't believe
Keir?
Magic Mike's Last Dance because we already dissed that. My number one of the second half of Soderbergh's career is one you've already chosen for your top five. It's The Informant, which
Oh, okay.
just for me, it's kind of like it's a little bit like the way you're talking about Logan Lucky. It is just a film that I find kind of tonally perfect. It's an odd little movie, and it definitely was not picked up and championed by so many people. Friend of the show, Gillian Flynn. I think it's her favorite Soderbergh. Maybe we should share a little of that audio clip. Um, but it's a movie that I keep thinking about. And I think that that is a sign of a deep connection to a film. I keep thinking about it. Uh, I hear the voice of Mark Whitaker in my head at times. It's the kind of movie that becomes like an in joke, like The Big Lebowski or something, where you it just becomes a little bit part of your worldview in a way. And Gillian talked about that as well. Like she and her husband have like an in joke whenever they feel like a salesman is getting a little too successful with them, with one of them, the other will turn to them and say like, I think I could see us fishing together, which is kind of like a sign that you're a little deluded in your thinking. It's a remarkable achievement in that it's a successful comedy about malfeasance at an agribusiness company in downstate Illinois, which is, I mean, that's pretty impressive, right? Lysine price fixing, like this. That's a remarkable job of writing in the script. The tone is the filmmakers, Soderbergh and his team, they know the tone they're going for, and the actors know the tone they're going for, and they nail it, and they're very consistent. And like Matt Damon, underrated comedy chops. I mean, he loves to show. Again, we talked about Daniel Craig loves to show up and be a goofball. Matt Damon can be, Jason Bourne, and he's great at that. Totally great at that. But he's also, I think his real love is buffoonish comedy. Has he been in a Coen Brothers movie? Because he should be. Am I forgetting something?
Gosh, that's a good question. I can't remember. I feel like he's been in. I feel like it was just on the tip of my tongue, and now I can't remember. Kier, let me look it up. Let me
Look
look
it
up.
up
Oh,
while I'm riffing here. If he hasn't, he should be. If he has, and I've forgotten, I'm sorry. Obviously, Clooney is a great Coen Brothers foil. Clooney also is a guy who can be suave and sophisticated. He can be Danny Ocean, but he also just loves to be, a dummy. I mean, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is one of Clooney's finest roles. Damon is just fully committed to this character, and his the job he does with the internal monologue. Like usually voiceover is not something filmmakers should use unless you're going to do something interesting with it. They certainly do something interesting with it here. And as I said on the before, it actually has inspired me in the book that I'm working on now, my writing. It's not a knockoff, but I've got a character that it kind of inspired me to take some risks with the internal monologue of my lead character in a way that I couldn't have done if I hadn't fallen in love with The Informant.
Yeah, well, I don't like going and jumping on the internet while we're talking. I think we both agree, but I did go to the Google and I made some discoveries here. So yes, Matt Damon has sort of been in a Coen brother movie. It's one that I just watched, and I was just thinking about, like, as we're cataloging great Matt Damon cameos. Not and The Informant is not, obviously he's the lead, but the cameo from No Sudden Move, he is the king of cameos. But he was in Drive Away Dolls in a very goofy role in that.
Oh,
He's
right. He was the
senator.
senator. Okay, but that was a Coen brother movie. So
Exactly. So
yes.
sort of in a Coen brothers movie.
Right. Yes. He was the senator who was trying to retrieve the plaster cast of his penis. One of the great all-time MacGuffins. Lou Berney in his book, The Long Far Away Gone, I think that's the right title, had another similarly bizarre MacGuffin. He had a suitcase full of foreskins. You have to read the book to understand that one.
Oh my.
But
I wonder if that was an
yes.
inspiration.
So there's some Coen brother and Damon overlap. That's perfect. Yes.
It feels like he's a natural fit for that, especially seeing like what they did again with a regular Soderbergh cast member, Clooney. Like you're saying, what they did with Clooney, Damon would just slide right into a Coen brother movie. And there's still time. They are, from what I understand, they are reuniting the Coen brothers. So hopefully, if you're listening, Joel, Ethan, get Matt Damon. He'll do right.
Get Damon. You need Damon.
Oh, wait a minute. He was in True Grit.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is crazy. I just Google searched Matt Damon Coen brother movies, and that didn't come up.
Okay. So, that all makes sense. Anywho, The Informant, I just absolutely love it. It's not like technically Soderbergh's best or his most accomplished film or whatever. Certainly not his most successful, but for me, it's just a movie that I love. And like the way you were talking about Kimi, sometimes you just form this relationship with the film that you just fall in love with it, and love is love.
So it's over then.
Mark, who did you tell?
What?
Who else did you tell about the raid?
Well, I had to tell my secretary.
And that's it for today. Tune in later this week when we review Soderbergh's latest movie, Black Bag.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that, Keir. As a matter of fact, as you know, I'm going to see it in a few hours, so we will have a review of that very soon.
Yeah, it kills me. I wish I could go see it with you today. I won't be able to see it for a few more days, but coming right up.
And like we've both said, we are not quite done with our man Soderbergh. After we review Black Bag, we will be back soon with our season finale, big final Soderbergh blowout, Robin the Bellagio. We're doing it all, and that will be coming soon.
The Filmographers 11. But even though season 1 will be coming to an end, we are going to keep going. We'll be interviewing filmmakers, writers, and other fascinating folks while we continue to review new movies by a wide variety of directors, all while we prep for an all-new season with an all-new director.
And we know who that director is, and you will know soon as well. Now, also, please remember to come see us at the Lake Street Theater in Oak Park or the Music Box in Chicago. Both are historic venues, and both promise to be lots of fun.
As always, you can find us on Bluesky, and we're on Instagram at The Filmographers, and we're even on TikTok. If you don't do the social media thing, you can just send us an old-fashioned email at thefilmographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Or visit us on Patreon, where you'll find all our episodes, merch, and more. We're at patreon.com/thefilmographerspodcast. That's patreon.com/thefilmographerspodcast.
Thanks, as always, to Kevin Lau, our producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and our merch. Join us next time on the Filmographers Podcast to hear our review of Black Bag.
Did we like it? Did we love it? Tune in to find out.